Hey everybody, I'm Bob Kovacs, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the battery in your car. Now my car, the car I'm actually replacing the battery in, is a 2008 Suzuki SX4, but the process is similar in most cars. So if I show you in this car, the chances are pretty good it's the same thing in your car. Now, how do you know if your battery's dead? Well, it's one of the worst feelings in automotive ownership when you go to turn the key to your car and you hear this. Almost every time that means that your battery needs to be replaced. There's a couple of other things it could be, but 99% of the time it means that your battery is dead, especially if the battery is more than, say, 5 or 6 years old. If it's 7 or 8 years old, you're pretty much running on borrowed time. So let's go ahead and take a look at replacing the battery in a typical car, in this case, a Suzuki SX4. Well, replacing the battery is similar in most cars. Not every car. I had a car, a 1987 Audi, where the battery was under the back seat. But most cars, the battery is in the engine bay. And so most cars, it's going to be about the same. Now this car is a Suzuki. It requires a 10mm socket on both terminals of the battery to get the battery terminals off. Also, having a short extension makes the job go a little easier. And then a standard 3/8 inch ratchet to get the job done. Finally, we'll need a standard flat blade screwdriver to help spread the terminals to lift the terminals off. Now the battery in this car was built in February 2012. So as I'm talking right now in this video, this battery is a little more than 6.5 years old. That's probably about an average life for a battery. So we're going to take the battery out and we're going to put the new battery in. The first step in the process is to take the negative terminal off, and that will be the last step when you replace the battery, will be to put the negative terminal back on. So it's first and last is the negative terminal, so let's start with that. Again, starting with the negative terminal, put the ratchet on and unscrew. Now this is good and loose, but if yours isn't loose, it might help to separate the battery connector with a screwdriver. I didn't really have to do that here. It was so loose that it wasn't a problem. And take the battery, the negative terminal off. Make sure that it doesn't accidentally touch this again while you're doing the rest of your work, because if this touches again, then you could cause a short circuit if your tool touches the chassis of the car. So make sure the negative terminal is well put away. Lift the cover off the positive terminal. Get your ratchet. Unscrew the terminal. And again, this terminal is nice and loose, but if it wasn't loose, you could pry it apart with your screwdriver. I'm just going to take this off. Now, holding the battery in place is this battery clamp, and the battery is clamped down with these two studs here. So we need to unscrew the nuts to release the battery clamp so that we can pull the battery off. Starting with this one. And going to this one. Now you can just spin the screws, the nuts rather, off with your fingers. And take the clamp off the top of the battery. Now these studs have hooks on the end, so be sure that you pull them up so they don't just fall down into the engine and disappear. With the battery disconnected and loose from the battery clamp, just pick it up and pull it out. Not absolutely required, but with the battery out, now's a great time to clean around the battery, like cleaning this tray and cleaning the sides here so your car looks sparkling new. Well, not new, but better than it used to look anyway. Now, again, not absolutely necessary. You could just take the new battery and put it right in. But I'm going to take some time and clean up a little bit before I put the new battery back in. Okay, with the area clean and things out of the way, drop the battery slowly so that it fits into the tray, like that. And probably the first thing to do will be to reinstall the battery holder so that we make sure it's clamped down good, and don't forget to do that later. So let's get that done. So here's a tip to getting the battery clamp back in place a little more easily. To keep these two from falling out constantly where they need to be, put them onto the clamp and just thread the nut onto the end just a couple of times so that it's held in place. And then slip it underneath this battery strap and put the holder in place. Now you can fuss with each of these rods and get it to be in the hole where it needs to be. Once I'm going to get this one in its hole right now, where it needs to be, I'm going to tighten this one down, just finger tight for now, so that it doesn't come out. Now I can play with this one on this side and get it in place. Now that I've got the one on the other side in place, I'll finger tighten that nut so that the hook is latched where it needs to be. Okay, both these are where they need to be. Now you get your socket and tighten them down. Don't tighten them too hard, but enough to hold the battery in place, because that's the whole purpose of this. The battery comes from the store with both the positive and negative terminals covered with a plastic cap. So now's the time to pull that cap off. And put the factory terminal on. Tighten it down. You want this down good and snug. Okay, that's the positive terminal done. Okay, now we're going to do the negative terminal. Now this is the last one you should do, is the negative terminals. The first one to come off when you take off the old battery, and the last one to go back on when you put on the new battery. So now we've got it back on. I'm going to finger tighten the nut, and then get it the rest of the way with my socket. Till it's good and tight. And now you're all done. Okay, here's the moment of truth. Let's see if it starts. Yes, it does. Battery replaced. Hey everybody, this is Bob Kovacs. Thanks for watching.